Emlah, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me again and happy 2026.
Yes, happy 2026. And I am thrilled that anytime that you and I get a chance to sit down and talk, it is just a fabulous time. I feel like I learned so much. I'm so excited to invite our community into the conversation as well. And, as we now enter into 2026, it's hard to believe that it was all the way back in 2022 that you came on to the
Wow.
podcast. We'll link to that episode in the show notes for those that want to go back and listen to that. That was the episode we titled One Pharmacist Journey in Entrepreneurship and Independent Pharmacy. And during that episode, which I hope people will go back and listen to, you shared
Mm.
several powerful stories, including your childhood growing up in Cameroon, volunteering in clinics, your journey coming to the US, eventually going to pharmacy school at Ohio State. And at the time, we were talking about the leap of faith in opening Powell Pharmacy right before the pandemic. Seems like a different world, right? As we
Oh my
now
goodness.
think back. And I was going back and reflecting on that interview, and there were two things that really jumped off the page to me. One of them is you said, if I'm going to fail, let me fail fast, and that you were driven by impact rather than titles. And then the second thing you said was you talked about defining success as improving the life of every person that you meet. And my question for you, as you just hear all of that and think about all of the things that have happened, right, since we had that interview back in 2022, what feels most true from that season today? And how has your definition of success and impact perhaps evolved?
Tim, I think about COVID and I want to say this and knock on glass. I hope the worst of it is behind us. But certain things change and certain things stay the same in life. And our ability with resilience is to be able to embrace the things that stay the same and also embrace the things that change. But my definition of success hasn't changed. It still remains using my abilities, my God given talent, my knowledge, and all the resources that I have to improve the life of the people that I interact with. And that improves my life eventually. So to me, that is truly success. That is the best that I can get. And in everything that I do every day as I wake up, I go practice, I take care of my children, and it's all towards that. So in the
Mhm.
end, I would, say I led a successful life, I live a successful life, and I'm living a successful life as an action word, as a verb,
Mhm.
and that
Mhm.
to me, that brings about impact.
It's interesting as you talk about the pandemic. I mean, of course, a unique situation, right? But the challenge is, one of the things I'm talking to my boys a lot about
Mhm.
is the
Yes,
concept of resilience, right? The word that you just mentioned a moment or so ago, and that, any
yes.
circumstance they're in, that circumstance might be unique, but the idea of challenges and overcoming and working through those challenges and embracing those challenges with a positive outlook and mindset, not to say you can't or shouldn't be honest about what those challenges are bringing and even the difficulties that those are bringing, but to be resilient through those, right? My lived experience says that the circumstances might be different, but there's constantly that's life, right? There's going to be challenges, there's going to be things that we have to work through, and maintaining what I sense from you, that mindset of not looking at these as problems or, nuances to the day that are dragging you down, but really a state of mind of, hey, this is a part of life and I'm going to embrace them, whether it's a global pandemic and I'm trying to start a business or whatever life may bring. And so I'm just curious, what is your approach, your mindset? How have you been able to embrace that type of approach that says, "Hey, problems are a part of life, and it's just we got to work through them and learn through them and be resilient."
Well, I wear a bracelet that says "Enjoy the journey,"
Mm,
and I just don't want to wear that bracelet. I want to leave that bracelet. So to enjoy the journey is to enjoy the ups and the downs, the left and the right of the journey. So we cannot choose and say, I'm only going to enjoy when my journey is going right, and I'm not going to enjoy the left turns. I'm going to make sure that I'm making the most, because times you have no idea what is going to serve you in the future from your current experience. And you have no idea. I usually say, the way I was brought up, and my difficult early childhood experiences made me who I am today. I could sit here and say, oh, my family wasn't the most ideal family when I was growing up, and my environment was not the most ideal, financial difficulties, ill health, and all the struggles that I endured. But I prefer to look at it as those prepared me for who I am today. And I have been pulled far to the left, far to the right, up and down. And I'm ready for whatever could be brought my way now. And I know that I have handled more difficult and tougher experiences. I always remind my children, I tell my daughter and my sons that, no matter what you're going through, somebody else in the world has gone through a similar experience for a longer duration and of a greater intensity. So, that perspective, that, if you embrace that changes your perspective. You know that, what, I can handle this. And I remind my staff about that at the pharmacy every day. And I say, you know what, we're not the first to open an independent pharmacy. We're not the only ones that are going through the difficult times in pharmacy practice right now. But our ability to learn from other professions, our ability to learn from nurse practitioners, dentists, physicians, and other associations, just the environment, open your eyes, like be mindful, like listen to the people around you. That helps. So, and I have a sign at the pharmacy that says the deadline for complaints was yesterday, so you missed it. And so we'll just embrace it and go forward from there.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. As I think back to that interview we had in 2022, a lot has happened in a short period of time, right? The growth of Powell Pharmacy, which is your independent pharmacy here in Central Ohio, expanding service lines. We're going to talk more about that, why you've made that decision. Starting your own podcast, right? We'll talk about that as well. I'm just naming a few. But as you reflect back on some of those big growth milestones, and if you had to describe the last few years in just a word or two, what would it be and why?
A word or two. I'm going to stick with intentionality. Or better still, intentional living. And just allowing myself to flow in the direction in which life takes me. And not just allowing that, it's like waiting, but not just passively waiting, but actively waiting for life to unfold and being truly involved in the direction of it. So I could sit and complain, because that's one thing that we pharmacists do really well. We're really good at complaining about the current healthcare system, the PBM, the political situation in the country, pharmacy schools, salary, how much help we have. We could sit here for the next hour listing all the problems that I can face at work as a pharmacist in the US. But we could also sit here for the next hour, Tim, and figure out all the blessings that we have to be able to practice pharmacy in the way that we can, and the opportunities that that as a pharmacist in the US, I have. If I spend majority of my time complaining, it's going to blind me and dull me and reduce my ability to manifest the right things that are going to come my way as a pharmacist. So being intentional and eyes open, mind aware, body ready to receive, there's some level of enoughness that comes with that. And once enoughness appeals, then there's the opportunity for growth. So that enoughness builds a solid foundation. And then, okay, let's expand the clinical services now, because we're not complaining about negative reimbursements. We know that negative reimbursements is there. I don't want anybody in the audience to get me wrong. I do acknowledge that we have the challenges that we have, but my goal is challenges, yes, challenge accepted. What's next? And how do we approach it in pharmacy practice to get what we want? Because we do have the muscle, the skill set, the academic aptitude, the training, and the degree on the wall, and the certificate, and the passion to get us there.
But Emlah, it's easier to complain, right? And I think you struck the balance there so well that we can hold both of these things to be true at the same time. And I think this is where we get stuck sometimes in bucketed thinking or A or B type of a mindset, right? What I hear there is you are being very honest about the challenges that exist. We're not in a naive, optimistic state, right? We're being honest about the challenges that exist in pharmacy practice. This could, of course, apply outside of pharmacy as well, but that's the example we're going to use here, about the challenges that exist in 2026 to try to operate a thriving independent pharmacy. We can reminisce on the good old days and the changes that have happened in reimbursement and all the threats. And we can look at the numbers about declining numbers of independent pharmacies. And we talk about pharmacy debt, all of it very, very, very real, right? But we can get stuck there if we're not careful. And I think the next step of evolution and growth that I hear you sharing is, let's be honest and acknowledge those challenges, but let's not get stuck in them. How can we now be an active participant with the circumstances in which we're operating with? And that doesn't mean we ignore them. And in fact, we can be an active participant in the advocacy towards improving some of those things. But how do we, with what we have in front of us, be able to move forward in a place that you can take control of the things that are within your control, while also hopefully moving some of these other broader issues forward? That, to me, that is a mindset shift where you're being an active participant in the direction of where things are going, rather than letting everything happen to you. And I think that's such a great segue into, building out what you've been doing at the pharmacy, because there's certainly enough challenges that we all know about in independent pharmacy practice. And, we tend to generalize a lot of these, right? That, hey, it's not possible to start or be successful in independent pharmacy in 2026. And I think we can look at what you've been building as just a very unique and exciting example of, hey, yeah, prescriptions and the dispensing of prescriptions, that's an important function of a pharmacy, but there's so much more that we can be doing. And I know we've been talking about this as a profession. It feels like, I've been out almost 20 years now, and we've been talking about the evolution beyond the dispensing of prescriptions, but to see the examples and the real life scenarios of what you've been building, and one of which I want to talk about is the Journeys program that you've been building. And, this feels like a big philosophical and clinical shift to how we view the patient interaction with the pharmacy, the community's interaction with the pharmacist, and the role of a pharmacist beyond the dispensing of the medication. So tell us more about the Journeys program. Not only what is it, but how did it come to be, and why do you feel like it's an important function of the pharmacy space?
We live in a time now where, Tim, the average patient walking into the pharmacy has access to more knowledge than we have ever imagined a patient would have. And as providers, we can either sit and refuse to acknowledge that, or we can acknowledge it. Because every time I'm sitting with a patient in a comprehensive health review, the patient has probably gone on ChatGPT and Googled their symptoms and Googled their medications before they're even coming to the pharmacy. So they have an idea of what's going on. They have the lingo down. And as providers, we need to acknowledge this and to be able to incorporate that into care. Because if we shun it, the patients are not going to live without technology.
Right.
So we kind of have to figure out a way, how are we incorporating technology carefully and leveraging that to use it to the optimal good. Because what's the end goal? The end goal is we want to feel better. No patient walks into the pharmacy wanting to just pick up metformin. The patient comes into the pharmacy going, this is a tool. I look at you, your pharmacy, your practice as a tool for me to feel better. So one step. And so the tagline at the pharmacy is, there's more to health than prescriptions.
Yeah.
And so the goal is, how can we embody whole person care? How can we practicalize it? How can we make it really pragmatic in such a way that we're not just talking about it, we're not just writing it. We could write a fancy, eloquent mission statement and put on the Powell Pharmacy website. But how do we make it in such a way that if you, Tim, walk into Powell Pharmacy today, you feel cared for, you feel taken care of, you feel empowered, and you are going out, whether you picked a prescription or you didn't pick up a prescription, you're going out as a better person and better empowered to take care of your health. And so that's why we incorporate the pillars of intentional living into pharmacy practice at pharmacy. And those pillars are nutrition, movement, inner alignment, and positive social connection. And so this journeys portion really fit into the inner alignment, because you can feel good, you can feel bad, but your biomarkers in your body are able to tell with certainty. So we're looking at subjective and objective data. So evidence-based, as an integrative pharmacist, I'm looking at not only that pharmacotherapy, but how can I combine that with mind, body, soul, nutrition, movement, alternative medicine, and just inner alignment of the patient. So how can I measure these biomarkers? How can I look at your levels of inflammation? Can we quantify it? So I can say, you have arthritis, you probably have some inflammation. You have some chronic disease, you have diabetes, you have hypertension, you probably have some inflammation, but probably it's not a word that I want to use in healthcare. I want to be certain. So I can measure your C-reactive protein. And with the Journeys program, I can send you to the lab, you get the test, and I can say, oh my goodness, your C-reactive protein is 5. I want that number less than 1. And here are the supplements that I'm going to give you. I'm going to make sure you start with taking a fish oil. I'm going to make sure you start taking turmeric. I'm going to give you a list of anti-inflammatory foods. I'm going to give you some workouts to do. I'm going to partner you with our fitness trainer and our nutritionist, a dietitian on staff, so we can achieve this lower level of inflammation, which is your goal.
I love it. What was coming to mind as you were sharing that, I'm thinking about my own personal situation, which I suspect others will resonate with. Your point about access to information, right?
Yes.
I'm maybe an overconsumer sometimes of, information. I love, right?
You're not alone.
It's the biohacking. It's the, hey, what about this? What about that? And so, I've absorbed a certain amount of information from books and podcasts and articles about, some of these biometrics, and have measured even some of those biometrics. I have dabbled in supplements associated with that, but not connected directly necessarily to the biometrics. And then I'm separately trying to address, whether it be fitness goals or spiritual goals, other types of things. And what I hear you talking about is bringing all of that together. And what gets me so excited about this is, I've been thinking a lot about the future of pharmacy practice, specifically community pharmacy practices. I think our listeners probably have as well. And when I engage with a traditional pharmacy practice environment, so long as it becomes the function of the distribution of the medication alone, just like you used with the metformin example, right? So if I have a prescription for metformin, I walk in the doors of a pharmacy, I get the bag with metformin, I leave, and that's the beginning, the end, and maybe even some headaches along the way with insurance or other types of things. That is a dead entity, right? It's a matter of time. It's a distribution function, right? And we can hold on to it. Maybe we will for longer than we think from a regulatory standpoint. This is what, for those who have watched the Amazon pharmacy commercials that are out, this is exactly what they're going after is, they have the image of somebody standing in a long line to pick up their medication. And somebody at the front of the line is, asking the pharmacist to check out another item that's not related to right? All the things that we kind of laugh about and joke about, but they're what they're going at is saying, hey, if you have this experience that's less than ideal, like, why not just get your medication dropped off at your front door? And as long as that's the comparison we're doing, it's a no-brainer of where that market's going to go. But let's not compare apples to apples. Right? What you're talking about is a completely different experience that somebody is walking into the doors of. Sure, they have their metformin that they need to be picked up, but what is the opportunity? What do they actually want? Not just to take the medication, not just to reduce their blood glucose, but what is the bigger whole person care questions? And how do we meet them there with biometrics and with whole person care and connecting them with a fitness plan and a dietitian? And if we can crack the code on this, Emlah, right, which is, what I'm so excited about you're building, we have the footprint built across the country. We talk about pharmacists 100%. Being the most accessible provider. Wow. Like if we could re-envision this, but for people that are listening to that saying, hey, Tim, that's great, but is that a sustainable business model? You would say what?
Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, all uppercase, yes. So I am working with Fullscript to make Journeys available to all pharmacists across the nation. So that's coming in the future. And I will share my how to get a hold of me with you, so you can leave it in the show notes so people can reach out to me, because as pharmacists, we want to leverage our clinical skills.
Yeah.
As a pharmacist, take, for example, I'm going to take my friend who is a graphic designer with McGraw-Hill. She's just, working, or maybe she works at TJ Maxx, or maybe she works at a grocery store. And so this is my friend, doesn't have the clinical knowledge that I have as a pharmacist. Who is better placed to understand the data from the wearables? If you're wearing an Apple Watch, if you are wearing a continuous glucose monitor, if you're wearing an Oura ring, if you're wearing all that, there's no reason wearing all that information if you cannot take the data from there and make your life better. If you're wearing all that to take the data from there and stress out, oh my gosh, my sleep was so bad last night. Oh my gosh, this. Oh my gosh, my insulin is up. Oh, it's peaking. That's not helping. That's increasing stress. But what we want to do is take that data and place the pharmacist in front. Pharmacist is the most accessible healthcare provider that there is in the US. How are we going to leverage that? We can use our knowledge to be able to explain this data. Okay, this is what your sleep says, and this is what your Oura ring says, and this is how we can hack that. We can be able to make good use of that so you can fall asleep and stay asleep. Here are some of the tools that we have at hand at the pharmacy for you. So if we're staying limited in that metformin, the metformin is going to do a good job as well, but what else can I do in addition to that metformin? That metformin is going to deplete your B12. And that's why you have low energy. And that's why 1 or 2 years down the line, you're going to be diagnosed with diabetic neuropathy. We could say, oh, it's a cause of the disease. That's how diabetes is going down. Or we could add duloxetine, Lyrica, gabapentin down the line. Oh, this is medication for diabetic neuropathy. You were going to get there. Or we could measure with journeys your B12 levels, replenish your B12, tell you the foods that are high in B12 to incorporate, and encourage you to exercise, strength training, build muscle, and just all around. And this is what the pharmacist should be doing and getting paid for that. So with Journeys, and you're able to get paid for this. So you're reimbursed for this and using your clinical knowledge and making the patient feel better, because the optimal goal is to lead the best version of you, the life which is the truest version of you, is the life that everybody wants to live. When your health suffers, everything around you suffers. You suffer, the people around you suffer. But if you can optimize your health, then you have the time to do all the other things, fun things that you want to do with your life. And pharmacists, we can enjoy doing this. We can do it without stress at the pharmacy, and we can go back home when our head hits the pillow. We know that we did a wonderful job today as a pharmacist.
I think great examples, what you're doing with the Align Hormones program, right? Personalized hormone care. Talk to us more about this as another service line, as another expansion that I think is reimagining the relationship that a patient has with a community pharmacist, and then also integrating in other healthcare providers.
It is beautiful, because like we said before, we can either sit and complain and join, online. If you talk to women in perimenopause or menopause age now, and they're, oh my gosh, my hormones are killing me. Oh, my hormones don't like me. We can either allow them to continue complaining, or, maybe my insurance doesn't cover hormone replacement therapy, or I don't know if it's a good option for me. But as pharmacists, we can educate. So the goal is, as a pharmacist, I want our pharmacists to look at ourselves as we have two things. Just like we take it one step to vaccines. I'm going to take you back to vaccines. As a pharmacist, my goal is I will educate you about vaccines, and then I will administer the vaccines. 50%, 50%. So if I say, oh, Emlah, you have turned 50. Once you celebrate your 50th birthday, my role is to give you a 50th birthday gift of the shingles vaccine, because I don't wish shingles on anybody. So here's some information about the shingles vaccine. I would advise that you take it, because, use myself as an example. When I turn 50, I will be getting my shingles vaccine. So I've educated you and what shingles is, what the vaccine prevents, not just the shingles, but post-herpetic neuralgia. And this is what it is. We don't want that painful rush. You can either get the vaccine today, or you can get it in the future, or you can not get it at all, but you have the information. You know that I learned something from that pharmacist, Emlah. So that's 50% of the work. Move that to Align Hormones. I could talk to the patient. I talk to the women and the men about the role of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHA, cortisol. These are things we throw about. Everybody hears the names of these hormones, but they don't really know what progesterone does in your body, And a woman is coming, oh, I'm having difficulty sleeping. maybe your progesterone is low. So what we do, we measure your hormones. The journeys, there are 3 different journeys we have at the pharmacy, and they're all linked. As we marry these services together, there are 3 different journeys. The first journey is just foundational. You just want to know what supplements you should be taking. You just want to know what biomarkers are looking like in your body, your vitamin D levels, your inflammation levels. The second journey is advanced heart health and cardiovascular and metabolic health. So we worry about cancers, but cardiovascular disease kills more people than all the cancers put together. So if we're going to put in our muscle and effort in fighting something, it really should be cardiovascular disease. And I remind my patients and clients every day that 50% of people who have a cardiovascular event have normal cholesterol levels. So even if your cholesterol levels are normal, there are other markers, LP(a), ApoB, just these other markers which we haven't learned anything about. And these are the things that pharmacists should be talking about. And measuring, we can measure these in journeys, and then we know how to reduce those so that we can reduce your risk. And then the third journey is this connecting with the aligned hormones, where we measure, both for men and women, we measure all your hormones, and then we can make recommendations. Oh, I see why you're having difficulty sleeping. We'll add that objective and subjective and say, oh, your progesterone is low. We can increase your progesterone levels, and that will help you fall asleep and stay asleep. Then, because we're a compounding pharmacy, pharmaceutical grade progesterone, the prescription progesterone, only comes as 2 strengths, 100 milligrams and 200 milligrams. What if you need 150 milligrams? And both strengths are made with peanut oil. What if you're allergic to peanuts? So now, as a compounding pharmacy, we can compound progesterone 100, either an immediate release or an extended release that doesn't have peanut oil. So that personalized whole person care again. And then once you take it now, you're able to fall asleep and stay asleep. And that again brings it full circle. Inner alignment, sleep matters, sleep, just resting your body, which we have taken for granted, just being able to sleep, you have a better productive day the next day. So, and I have partnered with Dr. Pragna Patel Dadania, a friend of mine who is an OBGYN, and she sees patients. She has a consult room in the pharmacy. We have a collaborative practice agreement with her, and she sees patients when we do these tests, and she sits down with them, goes through all the results, and then make recommendations and writes prescriptions if needed, and all the things that are, it's in addition to, not instead of. So what's best for you, and it's not exactly going to be what's best for your twin brother if you had one, even if you have similar genetic components. It's, again, your lived experiences and your individual biomarkers. I can talk about this forever, Tim, if you let me, but I'm so excited about this and the opportunity to be able to help people and to be able to build a business doing that, get paid for helping people and feel good helping people.
Which is the best 2 things to marry, right? When you're building a business.
It doesn't get better than that. Like it's to me, that is it. Like this is why my business is successful. This is why the pharmacy keeps growing. And this is why I have a wonderful, cohesive staff. And we have a really fun time at the pharmacy, as opposed to what you typically hear in the average pharmacy. We have a really good time at the pharmacy. We dance, we do squats at the top of every hour, and it's so much fun.
And as you were going through that last example, we were talking about the hormone care and the integration, and I was thinking back to what you had said about some of the technology that's evolving. You gave some examples, right? Apple Watch, Oura Rings, et cetera.
Yes.
And I think, at least as it currently stands, right, the tech and the information is great, but it's missing the integration into the whole person care. You know, I'm thinking about myself as a user of an Oura Ring, right? You get up in the morning, I look at my sleep score, and, you know, sometimes it aligns with how you're feeling. Other times it's not. It's like, oh, I was actually feeling pretty good, but thanks so much for telling me that I didn't sleep well. But then you go down the rabbit hole of, and the data is really good. You know, it'll say that, hey, your heart took longer for your heart rate to lower. It's like, oh, that's good. And they'll even have some stock information about, well, what are the most common things of why that might be the case, right? It could have been stress. It could have been eating late at night. It could have been physical activity too late in the night. I mean, a variety of different things. But there's so many other pieces that are missing. You think about your medical history, you think about your medication history, you think about what is it potentially hormone related? Is it stress related? Is it food related, right? I mean, all the different things and aspects, and to have a provider that can help you not only bring that information in, but pair it with all the other things that has the type of background training and expertise the pharmacists do. wow,
Yes.
like when we talk about the future of pharmacy practice, like I feel the energy of this.
This is it. This is it. This is it. Because you can wake up in the morning, Tim, and look at your Aura Ring data, and you turn to your wife and go, "Oh my goodness, darling, look at this. My sleep is not looking good." Between the two of you, you can have subjective data. You can talk about it. You can stress about it. You can laugh about it. But then, how about adding the clinical component to it? And what better person to do that than the pharmacist with the knowledge that they have? So now we can say, okay, what practical steps can we take to make sure that your sleep is better tomorrow? What can we also measure? In part of journeys, we'll measure your magnesium levels. So, you have low magnesium. We need to increase your magnesium. What type of magnesium are we using here? Different salt forms of magnesium. So it's a full, beautiful puzzle, which has all the pieces already. The pharmacotherapy, the evidence-based medicine, and the research studies are there. It just takes the pharmacist to take it, decode it, and then give it to the patient in a practical, sustainable way that's going to make their lives better and win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, when I think about our education, like we were trained for so much of this. And if not, by the way, we were trained to learn how to learn. Like we are capable, right? So, I know there can be some head trash.
Very capable.
Like I didn't get that in school, or I didn't get off that. We are all capable. You went through a very extensive, rigorous training program. Like we're all capable of learning and growing and have the base foundation knowledge if some of the more detailed information may not be there. I think often that's probably more head trash in reality, but nonetheless, we're capable of learning.
It's always head trash, Tim, because Powell Pharmacy also, another celebratory news, Powell Pharmacy just got approved as a residency site, a community practice residency site for the Ohio State University. So we will be getting our first resident in the next year, and for an integrative pharmacy practice. So when I get AP students and EP students in and they're like, "Oh, I'm not sure I learned this," I'm like, when I start talking and I start teaching, it comes back to them. You see their face light up and I'm like, "Oh, got it. Yeah." So we have the knowledge. It's sitting back there, that pharmacotherapy, that pharmacokinetics, and all that, those pharmacology classes, it's buried in there somewhere in your subconscious. And we talk about reticular activation system. It's not yet time to use it. Once it's time to use it, it just comes right back to you. And your body starts going, "Oh my gosh, this. It makes sense now. I can use this to help this patient." And it all aligns. And I'm just so happy that we can transform the practice of pharmacy this way.
I'm also thinking about the health and well-being of the pharmacist, of the provider, right? We know how real the burnout is, the issues, the wellness of pharmacists. And when I think about, a pharmacist that comes out of school potentially all excited about how they're going to be able to use their clinical degree, they get into a traditional practice environment, they're 6 months in, right? Reality sets up of the quotas and the metrics and the expectations, the grind of that. And all of a sudden they're looking up saying, "I'm going to do what for the next 30 to 35 years? Like, no wonder, right? There's significant burnout. But when you're talking about the model of care, which you're talking about, and I think of placing myself as a provider in that environment, wow, like I feel the energy of that, the excitement that, right? You have a puzzle to solve. You're using your degree and information in different ways, and you're connecting and meeting with a human being in a very different way, asking some of these bigger questions of, hey, if we're all here trying to live the best version of our lives and ourselves that we can, how can I, as a pharmacist, help you on that journey? Wow, what does that feel like, right? And to be a part of that, and to be a part of people's care in that each and every day, what a gift and an opportunity to do that. So super exciting.
An amazing gift, because it doesn't get better than that. Because it's truly the word gift is what it is. Because when you sit down and you take care of that patient in the way that we have articulated, you bring it to life and you take care of that patient. You think you're just doing your job. You think you're just here to get paid and doing your job, or you think you're just helping somebody. The first person you're helping is yourself. Zig Ziglar says it in his books, and his teachings about sales, the best way to get what you want is to help enough other people get what they want. And that's really what you're doing at the pharmacy, because you're doing those, you feel so good about yourself. Your own levels of your own neurotransmitters, your dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, they're increased when you're helping people. They're increased, and you tend to feel better about yourself. That healthcare provider burnout is something that we try to minimize. We take care of ourselves. I cannot take good care of you if I'm not taking good care of myself. We have to prioritize ourselves as pharmacists. We have to be able to take care of ourselves. That is why we have an alarm at the pharmacy that goes off at the top of every hour, and it says, it's time for squats. When it says that, we stop what we're doing and we give 15 squats. So 15 squats at the top of the hour. If there's a patient, you're welcome to join us. We had some people come in the other day. A group of 4 people came to get their shingles vaccine together. It was a shingles party, and they joined us doing the squats. It was so much fun. People were laughing. It was just that 1 or 2 micro session of inner alignment is enough to regulate our nervous systems and reduce burnout at the end of the day.
And I love it. It's such a tangible example. Tony Robbins talks about the state of mind, right, that you're in.
Yes.
And when you think about something as, quote, simple as doing jump squats, not only what is it doing physiologically, but what is it doing, to your mindset? And then how does that translate to your interactions with patients, interactions with your coworkers? So I love that. We could talk at length about other things that you're doing at the pharmacy, whether it's the expansion in the compounding space, how you've expanded your supplement business, Emlah Naturals, all of that great stuff. And if we had a lot more time, I'd love to dig deeper. I do want to fast forward though and talk about your new podcast, Intentional Living with Emlah. I know you've been talking about this for a while, and you hit go. You're several episodes in now. We'll link to that in the show notes as well. Encourage our listeners to check that out. Why was this the right time? Why did you decide to launch the podcast, and tell us what the show is all about?
So Intentional Living with Emlah just came about. I continue to realize that I have been blessed with so much, and I have been given so much knowledge and so much opportunity to share, that if I stayed at the pharmacy and only shared this with the patient who was in front of me at the pharmacy counter or in my consulting room, I was doing the world a disservice. And I said, it's time for me to be a channel of this blessing and share this with more people that walk into my pharmacy. Because I know there are people who do not live in Powell or the environs of Powell to come to Powell Pharmacy, but I think that they would benefit from what we have to share. So that is why I decided to say, we can sit and complain about our current healthcare system and polarity, because this is the time for it. I am Republican, I am Democrat. I am for GLP-1s. I am not for GLP-1s. I am for vaccines. I am not for vaccines. Oh, I am for this. I am not for this. We can sit in factions all day long. But in the end, who does that help? In the end, that doesn't help me. That doesn't help my neighbor. That doesn't help my community. So as a community pharmacist, I thought the best thing I could do was build community, build myself, and really improve that definition of success for myself by teaching people how to integrate the pillars of intentional living: nutrition, movement, inner alignment, positive social connections. Because none of these things are revolutionary. I'm not really going to say anything which is brand new that we have not heard before. We know we need to exercise. We know we need to eat right. We know we need to take our prescriptions. We know we need to take care of our health. But how do we actually do that in a practical way, embedded into your daily activities, while taking care of the children, making sure that they go to sports, making sure that they go to school, making sure that they prepare for their exams, and taking care of yourself, and then doing all of these things and preparing to prevent Alzheimer's and prevent diabetes in the future. How do we do that in one day? So that was the reason why I created Intentional Living with Emlah, to be able to bring this out. And I could sit there and keep the head trash all day. Oh, I'm not ready. Oh my goodness. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. Are people actually going to listen? Is it going to be fun? Are people going to learn? Is it going to improve somebody's life? But my hope and prayer is that it does. And we have hit 2,000 downloads so far. So, and I'm really excited, Tim. So, but you, I had 2 meetings with you, and those were great sources of inspiration for me. So thank you for encouraging me. And if it was only for you, this should have started in June of last year. And thank you for the pressure. Thank you for the positive pressure.
It was easy to give. One of the things that I've often said, and stealing a little bit this from The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, is paraphrasing. If you have a gift, you have an obligation to share the gift. And we all have gifts, and how we share those gifts may look different. But here you have a gift. And you have a gift. One of the things I alluded to earlier, you have an incredible gift to recognize the reality of what's in front of us while being optimistic and encouraging and empowering of how do we improve, change, and evolve going forward, and to meet people at a space that sees them for who they are, yet challenges them to take the next step. And that is so hard, but you have a gift for that. And you have many other gifts as well. And you have an obligation to share that gift. And I'm so glad that you stepped into recognizing that there's a responsibility in having a gift and being able and being willing to share it, even if that means we got to work through some of our own head trash, right, to get there. And
Yes.
you know what? One of the things you said that I just want to come back to. You talked about some of the factions that we're stuck in. You know, I think it's easier to stay in the factions. It's easier to stay in the polarity arguments. It's easy to stay in a place of stuck than it is to be willing to enter the messy middle. And again, I just love that you're entering into that, because the examples you gave, right? Often there's so many conversations that we need to have that are somewhere in between those, yet we stay. It's easier to stay stuck. It's easier to complain, right, about the circumstances that we have in front of us. I want to wrap up with a couple fun questions that I think will give our listeners just a little bit more in-depth look to Emlah and who Emlah is. One of the things that has always stood out to me when I've had a chance to meet with you over the years is that you have an incredible ability to give 100% to whoever is directly in front of you. That's 100% right now in this interview. As you shift to your next task, that will be 100%. As you end up going home, I'm sure that's 100% with your family. That is so hard to do. So hard to do, especially in an age of distractions that we have now. How do you sustain that? What's the secret sauce to allowing that to be? What are the rhythms and routines that you put in to be in a position and a mindset to do this? Tell us about why Emlah is able to be 100% in giving to whoever's in front of her.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for that. But this is a very selfish thing that I do, because I sincerely believe that anybody who is placed in front of me that I have the opportunity to cross paths with came with a gift to give me. And if I do not pay attention to that person, I will miss my gift. And that person could be giving me any gift, and I have no idea what it is. But the only way I can find out the gift that person came to give me is to pay attention to them, look them in the eye, connect with them, listen to them, hear them. Even if I'm at the pharmacy counter and there's 5 people or 10 people behind you in line, I teach my staff and I say, you raise your head up and you say, I will be right with you. And that's all you say to the other people. And then you focus on the person in front of you. And it's all about them. It's you and them, and the rest of the wall can sleep at this moment. And you take good care of them like you're taking care of the best person that ever met you in your life. And then you learn something from them. You gain something from them. You think you're helping that person, but you're actually helping yourself. And then you gather something from them that lifts you, elevates you to be able to take care of the next person better. And that's resilience. That is success. And I gather, I'm surrounded by all the wonderful people around me, and that's what continues to help me. And I teach my children this, that, on a Friday night, we do a Friday night party, and it is just us. It is music, it is dance, it is whatever we're doing, and it's just us. And there's no better way to define mindfulness than to be here now, me and you talking, whether we have 1,000, 1 million people listening. It's me and you right now, Tim, and I'm honored to be here with you at this moment.
I love that. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was fear. I think a lot of people may struggle with fear of failure, fear of making mistakes, fear of not being enough, that can ultimately hinder their ability to take steps forward. And so we end up kind of plateauing at a certain place, and all different. We're talking about business. This could be in our relationships. This can be in our spiritual journey, our walks, all different types of places, because we get stuck often out of fear. And you said on our previous interview, fear comes every day, but as long as I'm grounded, I can walk through it. Tell us more about your mindset around fear, and perhaps even embracing or expecting or welcoming the possibility that failure may come, and not getting stuck in the fear of failure along the way?
I take it like a puppy that I have. Imagine I have a cute little puppy that can fit in my purse. And this is a very funny analogy, but I use this for my daughter because she wants a puppy. And I tell her she's a high schooler now, she's a freshman. And being in high school, there's that fear. It's at every level of our life, being a pharmacist, being an entrepreneur, a businesswoman. There's that fear, what if this is wrong? What if this is the wrong partnership? What if this is the wrong idea? What is the wrong service? But my puppy is with me all the time. And every time I look at this puppy, which is called fear, it tries to, send its head up and say, Emlah, don't do that. You may not succeed. You may fail at that. I go, it's all right, buddy. We'll fail together. It's all right. When we fail, we'll learn. We'll get going. And when in this process, we'll meet some nice people along the way as we fail, and then we'll learn, and then we'll be able to teach others how to fail and how to rise from failing. And when we do it, we will do it with so much confidence in the future. But I just talk to that puppy the way I would talk to a baby, and in this very kind, consoling, like, okay, it's all right. Let's do it, and then let's fail together, but let's go at it full force. So that's kind of that's my inner mantra of tackling fear. And so that way, bring it on. If I fail, I failed. And but tomorrow we'll do it again. We'll find a different route, and we'll be successful if it was meant to be.
What I love about the puppy visual, I'm going to give a different visual to supplement yours, is that you're acknowledging it. Number one, it's not a go away or I'm pretending it's not here, but it's not all consuming and defining of your identity, which fear can become so enmeshed, right? If we're not careful. And what you're doing there is you're taking a step back and observing the fear and acknowledging it, recognizing it without letting yourself fully embody it or it becoming all consuming. It reminds me of Richard Schwartz does there's a type of therapy called parts work, and no bad parts is the idea that we all have these different parts, all for a variety of reasons of our environment and genetics and how we grew up. And if we can acknowledge the part, one of the guys in my men's group once described this as you are driving the car. It's okay if the parts are in the car. It's okay if fear is in the back seat. Just acknowledge it, recognize it. But fear doesn't need to drive the car. Like you can still drive the car and fear can be present, and I love it. It's the same way of kind of getting what you're getting out with the puppy example.
Just sit over there and buckle yourself. That is sit. It's okay. Just be there. But we're going. Okay. I love that. I love that analogy. Yes. Yeah. So, but it's acknowledge it. It's right here and we're going, but I'm the driver. Okay. And so, we'll do this together.
Well, Emlah, as always, this has been just a joy for me. Thank you so much for taking time to come on the show and share a little bit about not only what you're doing on the business side, but a sneak peek behind some of the mindset and mentality of what you do and why you do it. As we wrap up, we will certainly link in the show notes to the pharmacy, to the services, to the podcast, so people can dig deeper in any one of those areas. In addition to those, what's the best way that people can reach you, connect with you, ask questions if they have them after listening to the show?
Well, it's on dremlahtubuo.com, and I have pharmacist resources, and I have strategic business consults on there for pharmacists who want to pivot, figure out what they could do to improve their pharmacy practice. And also, I am a life coach, and I love taking care of people. So if people want to reach out to me, they could send me an email. I could schedule time to talk with them, help them, and take out that mind trash that is always there. Figure out ways to continuously cleanse and motivate yourself as you travel on this journey. I am on Instagram. It's Dr. Emlah Tubuo, and also on LinkedIn. Again, Emlah Tubuo. I'm trying to be Emlah Tubuo everywhere. And but the best place is also the podcast, which I try to launch an episode every Wednesday, and 30 minutes good drive time, so that way people can learn something and be better. And I want to thank you, Tim. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on here, and thank you for not only encouraging me but giving me and the people that cross paths with you the opportunity to see how to be a better version of themselves and truly lead the lives that we were put on this earth to live and have fun doing it. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emlah. And again, we'll link to all of that in the show notes so people can easily reference that. And we look forward to having you back on the show again. Hopefully not 3+ years. We'll make it faster next time. So thank you, Emlah. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, Tim.